I've always hated him. Why did I sleep with him? I opened my eyes, somewhat dazed, a strange warmth across my cheek and throughout my upper body. I blinked several times as I felt a terrible headache, probably caused by yesterday's party. The dryness in my throat made me cough a couple of times. Finally up, dipshit? My whole body tensed up when I heard that voice. Why was someone in my bed? My mouth gaped when I finally absorbed my surroundings. I was definitely not in my room, or my bed. The warm surface my head was resting on was a chest, and my arms clung tightly to this person's waist. My breathing stopped. What did I do last night? Took you long enough, the voice spoke again. This time I recognized it. This had to be a dream. No, not a dream. A nightmare. My body was petrified, but still, I forced myself to look up. A quick but loud scream escaped my mouth, and my body scrambled backwards. My legs also trashed, trying to get away from him, kicking him out of the bed in the process. A loud thud and a groan were the only things I heard after. It was Michael, my worst nightmare. What is wrong with you? He screamed back at me as he sat on the floor. What the hell? What is wrong with you? I screamed back. Get away, you gross me out. I gross you out? You were drooling all over my chest for hours. I was kind enough not to wake you up, and this is how you repay me? He pointed an accusatory finger towards me. My cheeks heated at the accusation. I was not. Sure, Mr. Cuddles. He stood up from the ground, very much naked, with no shame at all. Jesus Christ, put something on. Both of my hands went over to cover my eyes. Blindly, I threw a pillow at him. I don't want to see any of that. I think it's a little late for that. You saw plenty last night. My hands dropped from my face to see my own naked body, and the fractured memories start to hit. The last clear memory I had was Michael coming up to me at the party. And like every encounter of us, it ended in an argument. I was not sure how we started discussing Michael's bed skills. Knowing me, I was probably fed up with his constant bragging, and most likely insulted his ego. Cropped images of us walking to his apartment, or me jumping on him as soon as we arrived, appeared in my mind. I cringed at the last. The few memories I had was more than an excited participant. Oh God, I muttered. When the realization hit me, I had slept with Michael, the guy I hated so much. The only person I couldn't stand, and of course, to make everything worse, I had enjoyed it. Listen, maybe you could freak out another time? I have class right now. He threw my shirt to my face as he put his boxers back on. I glared at him. What, were you expecting also some morning cuddles? He said in a stupid tone. He extended both of his arms, but made no intention to walk towards me. Screw you. I got up and started dressing up as quickly as possible, my back towards him. Unconsciously, my eyes sneaked a peek at him, only to find him already watching me. I turned around, feeling myself blush. Crazy, Michael started saying. Last night, you were... I don't remember, I quickly interrupted him, not liking where the conversation was going anymore. You don't remember anything? He asked. His gaze met mine, and I could feel him analyzing me. My eyes dropped to the floor, not standing those hazel eyes. I heard a small chuckle. Okay, I see. Do you remember anything, I asked while nervously played with my hair, making my best effort to look natural and nonchalant. He took a moment to respond. He looked at me up and down with a knowing smirk on his face. Nothing at all. I looked at him suspiciously for a second, and that was our last conversation before I went home. The next day, after that uncomfortable morning, I spent the entire day contemplating my bad decisions. No matter how attractive Michael might be, he had the worst personality in the world, and had always been that way since we were kids. I couldn't remember the exact moment I met Michael, because our mothers had been friends and neighbors long before we were born, so we had always known each other. What I could remember was the image of a very talkative and noisy blonde boy who occasionally visited my house. At some point in my life, the feelings towards that boy evolved from annoyance to pure hatred, especially with that terrible personality he developed over time. At first, when we were kids, I could handle it, but eventually Michael's behavior became difficult to ignore. He went from constantly annoying me with his unstoppable chit-chat to contradicting me and trying to fight me every chance he got. Having such pride, I couldn't let him win, so I always responded to every provocation. Michael, instead of backing down, always seemed more fired up after my attacks. On several occasions, they called our parents, when these arguments became physical. Although we had matured quite a bit, and it had been years since we fought on such a scale, there was still some animosity between us. It was terrible when we ended up attending the same university. Even though we didn't study the same major, we saw each other more often than we would like. I did my best to avoid him, but sometimes I just couldn't. I guess one of those was that night at the party. After a whole day of moping and complaining about my past self, I went to school the next day. After all, I couldn't avoid it forever. Thankfully, I didn't see Michael at all. Even though I should have been glad, I couldn't. Most of the time I was a wallflower. No one paid attention to me. Unlike Michael, who was always the popular kid, who everyone loved. Except me, of course. So being noticed was definitely strange for me. And if I was honest, it was creeping me out. "Hey, you're Alex, right?" a girl asked me. Once she sat next to the bench I was. "I'm Sasha. We had one class together last semester." I looked at her confused for a second because I honestly didn't recognize her at all. "Right. So how have you been?" she asked me with a big smile on her face. I didn't understand why she was talking to me. "Your has become a popular topic around school lately." "What do you mean?" "Come on," she gave me a look like, "about what happened between Michael and you the other day." My eyes widened when all those looks and whispers around me finally made sense. Why is everyone talking about that? Well, they're all impressed that you could get with him. You guys just don't seem compatible, or at least, that's what everyone says. Not me, by the way, she quickly rambled as she played with a strand of her hair. Blonde hair. How did you manage to get with him? That question stung because it implied people were shocked that someone like me had ended up doing it with the popular kid. I felt anger surge in me, the kind that always made me do irrational things. So everyone says that? Yeah, but no offense to you, it's just Michael is Michael, you know? I knew. Oh, I knew very well who Michael was. Just a jerk who didn't deserve to be worshipped by everyone. Well, yeah, I guess Michael is the best. Why do you say it like that? I looked around and inched myself closer to her and lowered my tone of voice when I said, "Can I tell you something, but only if you promise not to tell?" Of course, her eyes lit up in excitement. If I'm being completely honest, I started acting shy and embarrassed, like I was reluctant to talk about it. He wasn't that good. She gasped loudly before her hands covered her mouth. No way. What did he do wrong? I didn't say anything. I just put my pinky finger up in front of her face and I let her connect the dots. The expression on her face was comical. Remember not to say anything. It was the last thing I said before walking away, with a devilish grin on my face. 2 days later. The gossip spread much faster than I thought. In just 2 days, everyone was talking about Michael. At first, all this was very funny to me. Sadly, this feeling did not last long. Little by little, the rumors, which at first were harmless and ridiculous, turned into something more serious and worrying. It was funny if they said that Michael lasted minutes in bed. But it didn't seem so funny anymore when there were people affirming he had all the STDs on the planet, or that he refused to partake in safe sex. There were atrocious things that were being said about him now, and that seemed to me to be crossing the line. I inevitably began to feel guilty, and apparently I was not the only person who blamed me for all this. What did you do? Michael cornered me as soon as I walked out of campus, pulling me towards an empty street. You started all those rumors. Okay, first of all, let me go, I said when I noticed his hand still holding onto my wrist. Second, I didn't start shit. Oh, so you're telling me you didn't say anything? Nothing at all. I hesitated only for a second to answer, and that was enough for Michael. What a jerk. You did say something. You suck at lying. I don't believe I did. It was just that Michael was good at reading me, and I hated it. The only thing I said is that it wasn't the best I ever had, okay? And I said that in confidence to this one girl. How was I supposed to know she was going to tell everyone? Not the best. Right? Right? He laughed, but he didn't look amused at all. Like you weren't saying something different that night. You were all over me, you little vampire. And what was that you kept repeating? He stopped for a second, pretending to think. Shut up, I don't want to hear it. Oh, I remember what it was. A devilish smile appeared on his face as he got closer to me. Stop. Both of my hands went to grab his shoulder, and I shook him, trying desperately to shut him up. Then, to make sure he didn't say anything, my hand went to cover his mouth, which he easily grasps away. Our closeness suddenly felt like too much. I tried to step back, but his hand on my wrist pulled me back in, even closer. Don't even try to think otherwise, because we both perfectly know how it all went down. Maybe I should also start telling my version of things. Don't you dare, I snarled in his face. Well, you started this, so either you fix it or I'll start talking. Unlike you, I'll only say the truth. They're just rumors, they'll go away. I tried to defuse the situation. No one really cares. Dude, they're saying I'm into stuff like role-playing as a baby and shit. My hand slapped my mouth, but the laughter couldn't be contained. Not funny. It is a little bit. Fix it. Now. He emphasized every word. He didn't say, but the or else was heavily implied. Look, you're an idiot if you think I can do anything to fix this. Guess what? Rumors go away quickly. You just need the next big thing to happen and everyone will forget about it. Big thing? Yeah, I don't know, a pregnancy or a breakup. Maybe like a new couple getting together? I started listing random things. My point is, something will eventually happen. So just wait it out. I'm not waiting for shit. He looked at me up and down, like he was pondering something. An idea that I knew I wouldn't like. Let's force the next big thing to happen. How? Date me. My breathing stopped, and my heart skipped a bit. Why? I don't... What? Not for real, you idiot. We just fake it until people stop talking about me. Did the steroids you take finally fry your brain? Listen to me. People will stop assuming I was bad because you decided to start dating me. No one is going to buy that. Like hell, I'm going to be able to pretend like I like you. Well, either you start practicing your acting skills or I speak up. Your choice. Either one works for me. I hate you so much. The next day. Get in, idiot. Michael screamed from his car as he honked multiple times when he came to pick me up for school. I was really tempted to just ignore him and continue walking, but I knew he had me on a tight leash. So I just rolled my eyes as I got into his car. What's up with this? Well, we have to make it believable. We're in love, remember? Yeah, like calling me an idiot makes it more believable. Real cute. What about babe? Do you want me to call you babe? He looked at me with a smirk on his face. Babe, I'm going to puke in your car. He laughed loudly before taking us to school. 20 minutes later. As soon as we arrived at school, all eyes were on us. I could practically hear the whispers of people disapproving of me, saying that Michael should be with someone better. It was so terrible that breathing became agitated and I couldn't do anything but look at the ground. Hey Alex, it's okay, Michael whispered in my ear, and I couldn't stop myself from jumping. He grabbed my hand and held it, smiling at me. It was strange because he rarely smiled like that at me. We're in this together. Strangely, his touch made me feel more calm. I smiled back at him and told myself it was only for the act. That's more like it. He kissed my temple gently and I couldn't help but blush. Michael went to drop me off at my class, but not before giving me a big hug and a kiss on the cheek. Despite knowing him for so long, we had never done anything so affectionate like that. I was completely blindsided. Of course, I knew that we would act as a couple, but I only imagined that we would walk holding hands at most. I didn't expect so many displays of affection from Michael. I didn't hate them, but they made me feel nervous and restless. Was that how he behaved when he went out with someone? 3 weeks later. As the days progressed, I became more and more accustomed to his touch, to the point where I almost expected it, although it continued to cause strange sensations within me. I insisted on ignoring them. This same feeling made me push Michael far away from me every time we were alone, which Michael didn't appreciate very much, but he didn't fight me because of it. Actually, we now rarely did in general. We were definitely not best friends, but it felt like we had made an unspoken agreement to make it less hell for the other, at least until we were done with this. People were more than shocked to see us always together. Even though some weeks had already passed since we started this strange ruse, people continued to go silent every time we passed by, and they kept looking at us out of the corner of their eye, analyzing us. I understood the curiosity to a certain extent, since despite being the most popular boy, Michael had never been seen publicly around school with a partner, and no one expected that I would end up being the one. This is the plan for today, he started once he pulled me into a secluded corner. We are going to walk to the cafeteria and we're going to sit at the table alone, preferably one in the middle. I rolled my eyes. Ugh, don't think you love the attention a little too much? Sweetheart, we're doing this for attention. I bit my lip and rolled my eyes when he heard the pet name. I preferred him when he called me an idiot. At least that way my heart didn't behave weirdly. So back to the plan. We're going to sit there and, talk, flirt a little bit. Nothing crazy. And then I'm going to make this sign. He put his thumb against his nose. I nodded, confused. That's when you're going to kiss me. My jaw fell to the floor. Kiss you? What for? It can be a peck, nothing crazy. No way, why do I have to kiss you? Because we're trying to make it believable that you actually like me. He looked at me as if I were dumb. No offense, sweetheart, but I've been doing all the heavy lifting around here. Sorry for having a hard time being fake. Not everyone is so good at it like you, I said bitterly. He didn't look at all affected by my dig at him. Yeah, are you in, or is it a task way too difficult for you? Ugh, I hated it when he dared me because that was my weak spot. I would always fall for it. Difficult my ass. We walked into the cafeteria and swiftly executed the plan. We sat at a table, on the same side. Michael cuddling up to me, hugging me with one arm. People tried to be discreet, but I could see curious eyes on us. Why are you blushing for? He whispered in my ear. I felt my cheeks get even more hotter. Still not used to it? Get over yourself, it's just warm and you're like a heater. I made sure to shove my elbow in his chest. He chuckled as he grabbed my elbow. Heater? As I'm too hot? More like an easy way to waste space and energy, especially when not needed. This time he laughed honestly and kissed my cheek, making me blush even more. You've always been funny. I looked at him surprised by the sudden compliment. His eyes looked deeply into mine, and that made this warm feeling in my stomach grow. He winked at me before getting up and walking away. Oh, wait. What about the kiss? Did he insist so much just to forget about it? That's when he stopped for a second and looked back at me standing in the middle of the cafeteria. His thumb touched lightly his nose, pretending he was scratching it. I got up quickly and walked up to him. I wanted to punch that smirk off his face, but I couldn't, so I just kissed it away. It started as a peck, but then it got more intense when Michael grabbed my face. My heart raced, and that's when I had to push him away. I looked at him, confused, just to find him as red and breathless as I was. If anyone said anything about it, I didn't know because my eyes were only on his. Michael pulled me by the wrist out of the cafeteria. That was enough to break the spell for me. It was just a kiss. Why was I so flustered? Well, that was crazy. I think we got them in there. People are so dumb sometimes, right? I started rambling really fast out of nervousness. Michael wasn't answering. He just kept dragging me in silence. I think we both are great actors. We totally should think about changing majors because... Michael stopped and finally turned around to see me. His dark eyes made me choke on my words. He stepped closer, and in response I tried to step backward only to feel a wall against my back. His hands reached for my cheeks, and he looked into my eyes. I felt like my heart was going to explode out of my chest. Our faces were so close when we both heard a gasp and giggles. We both jumped and turned to look at a group of people who were pretending they didn't just see us. Michael coughed before looking down. He tried to step away, but my hands reached for the front of his shirt. Before he could, he looked at me surprised, and a big smirk appeared on his face. This time, he was the one to close the distance between us, in a hotter and passionate kiss. Don't ever say I don't pull my weight, I whispered in between kisses. 2 weeks later, after that kiss, my head was full of Michael. I could not stop thinking about him. I didn't understand why this was happening to me. I was supposed to hate him, but now every time Michael approached me, instead of feeling disgust or hatred, I was only able to hear the loud sound of my heart. Although it hurt my pride to admit it, I now looked forward to those little moments we spent together, acting as a couple. A small part of me desiring more from him. I was addicted to him, whispering jokes in my ear when we were supposed to flirt, and I loved the way he grabbed at my hand every time I was anxious in public, even though I would never say it out loud. Michael was a sweet man, and now I understood why he was so popular, and why everyone wanted to be around him. Today was no exception. I walked out of my class, expecting to find Michael waiting for me, and he was, but he was not alone. A group of people was around him. I tried to pretend I didn't see him and escape, as I didn't like big crowds, but Michael called my name as soon as he saw me and signed me to come over. I stood by his side, and he integrated me into the group by putting his arm over my shoulders. It's just crazy that you guys are together, one of the girls in the group said. How did this start? Michael and I exchanged looks for a second, uncertain of what to say. This was the first time someone had asked. Well, it's a funny story, Michael started explaining. Funny story? Yeah, I guess that's what you would call it. Actually, I liked him first. Everyone looked at each other surprised. Even I had a similar expression. Since we were kids, I've always liked how he was so unapologetically himself. He didn't care about what others said. It's always been me following him around like a loser. His head reached for me and gently combed my fringe to the back of my ear. What about you, Alex? Someone else from the group asked. And that took me out of my trance. I mumbled clumsily. I looked at them and then at Michael. He had an expectant look on his face. Everything felt like too much for me. Excuse me, I need to go somewhere. That's the only thing I said before walking away. I was almost out of the campus when I heard someone rushing towards me. Are you okay? Michael asked once he was next to me. Yeah, perfect, I answered without looking at him. I just continued walking. Alex. He stood in front of me, stopping me. What is it? I stayed quiet for a second. I took a deep breath before making up my mind. Things couldn't keep going like this. I want this to be over. He looked confused at me. What? Yeah, this plan we had going on, it's over. You got what you wanted. No one is talking to you anymore. So why keep going? It's pointless. I needed desperately for this to stop, for the well-being of my heart. It was scary how much I had fallen for him in such a short time. I needed it to stop. I couldn't fall for something that was not real. An act Michael was doing for the world to see, not for me. Pointless. He looked at me angrily. Even with that ugly glare on his face, he looked handsome. Yeah, we should just go back to how we were. Not waste our time and energy anymore. He walked closer to me and pointed an accusatory finger at me. He opened his mouth like he was ready to give it to me, but he didn't say anything. He just sighed, defeated. Fine, have it your way. You always do. 3 weeks later. It was Friday night, and it had been a week since the last time I saw Michael. I decided to go to his random party in the hopes that alcohol would make me forget about him, even if it was just momentarily. Of course, with the luck I had, Michael was also there. When our eyes met, he quickly looked away, and that made me feel a sting on my chest. I tried to also look away, but it was like my eyes couldn't stop looking for him, even when he was already talking to some random guy. That person whispered something in his ear, and then Michael proceeded to laugh loudly. I felt my chest full of jealousy. Michael whispered something back and then looked again at me. Quickly, I looked at my beer as if there was something really interesting in the bottle. When I looked up again, Michael was already walking towards me. Hey, Michael said. What are you up to? Nothing much. I took another sip of my beer. Enjoying the party. Or more like, enjoying the view? Excuse me? Come on, you've been staring at me. You haven't been subtle. I blushed. Presumptuous of you to assume I've been looking at you. Oh, really? Then who? I looked for a second around the room until my eyes settled on the guy Michael was just talking to. Well, the guy you were with is pretty hot. Michael's expression was comical. His mouth was open and his furrowed eyebrows. It was a combination between shocked and being pissed, but that expression turned fast into a devilish grin. Oh, no. Oh, really? Then I can make you both acquainted. Before I could say anything, Michael pulled me towards the guy, whispered something to him, and introduced me. The guy started to ask me questions with certain interest, and I tried to make my best effort to show the same interest back. But I felt like I was losing this game, especially with Michael there constantly laughing at me with a smirk on his face. He knew I wasn't into him at all, but he enjoyed testing me. Anyways, obviously you guys were in the middle of something, so I'll let you be, I quickly said as an excuse to escape. Well, actually, Michael said that you were interested in me, the guy started saying with a grin on his face. That bastard. I looked at Michael, pissed. I was thinking we could have fun, the three of us, the guy proposed. I looked at Michael like I was looking for help. You can say no if you're not interested, Michael said. Of course this idiot was doing all this to make a point and make me back down. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. To Michael's surprise, I ended up accepting and was even the first to push them to find a room. Once inside, the boy's lips found my neck. Michael kept his distance from us for a second, watching us. He no longer looked as happy as he did before, and I blushed under Michael's intense gaze. The guy separated himself from me and approached Michael. I felt a terrible sensation in his stomach when he kissed Michael on the lips. I couldn't bear to see them. I thought I could, but the pain was too much. Without saying anything, I ran away from the room. Alex, Michael screamed as he followed behind me. Leave me alone, Michael. I walked even faster. No, I'm not leaving you alone, he screamed. The seriousness in his tone made me stop, but I didn't turn around. I wasn't strong enough to see him face to face. Why did you leave like that? Because I didn't feel like doing it anymore, I lied quickly. Right, but why? Just because, no reason, I shrugged. No reason? He walked to stand right in front of me. Then why did you look like you were about to cry? I opened my mouth to explain myself, but I felt a knot form in my throat. I'm sorry, he interrupted. His hand reached for my shoulders and he looked deep into my eyes. About tonight, about everything. I expected him to make fun of me or tease me. Not this. All this time I didn't realize, but I was so desperate for your attention. I ended up doing anything to get it. The worse you treated me, the more I misbehaved, because even if it was for bad reasons, that meant you were looking at me. He stopped for a second, before laughing at himself, like some stupid kid pulling the pigtails of the girl he liked. What? Stop. You don't like me, you hate me. I felt my eyes fill up and I tried to look away. But his grip on me held me in place. Stop pretending. No one is watching. I don't hate you. I'm not pretending. Never was. Why do you think I slept with you? His hand went to hold my chin when I stayed quiet. Remember what I said last time? I meant every word. I have always liked you, just didn't know it. So if you want to reject me, or you want me to leave you alone, you can say so. But don't say I'm not being honest. I was out of words, my heart beating hard against my chest. I was confused, but the only thing I knew was that I needed his lips on mine. Instead of saying it, I raised my hand to my face, and I touched my nose with my thumb. He smiled at me brightly. Aren't you cute? It was the only thing he muttered before kissing me. I like you too, I whispered, between kisses. It was about damn time you said it. I laughed at that. Sorry for making you wait. You'll have time to make it up to me. No more fake dating. This time it's for real. This time it's for real. He grabbed me by the neck and kissed me again. Next Monday, after the party, Michael and I spent the entire weekend at his apartment, enjoying each other's company in every way. When Monday came, Michael wouldn't let me come home, and I ended up attending class wearing his clothes. When I came out, he was already waiting for me. When I took his hand in mine, I could practically hear the people's whispers. Haven't they ended their relationship? Are they together again? If I wasn't so happy, I would have resented the attention. Unlike me, maybe that bothered Michael because, in front of everyone, he grabbed my face and planted a passionate kiss on my lips. Want to go to the beach? Michael asked me, once we were inside his car. I looked at him confused. Right now? Yeah, why not? Well, it's an hour away and we have class tomorrow, I stated the facts. So, who cares? He had a mischievous smile on his face. A first date on the beach would be cute, don't you think? I hummed, smiling back at him. I do love the beach. I know you do. You do? Of course, when we were kids, you always looked so excited every time your parents took you there. You remember? How could I not? I felt so moved. I could cry, but instead I just kissed his cheek and rested my hand on his thigh. Let's go to the beach. I want to go there with you. 1 hour later, when we got to the beach, we played in the sand and then swam naked, throwing water at each other and laughing at each other's jokes. When we started to get cold, we got out of the water and they started dancing, holding hands while we watched the sun go down. Michael whispered to me how happy he was, and I just kissed him in response. I want to see how long we can do this, he said between kisses. I want to see if we can do this for the rest of our lives, I replied with a grin. Conclusion. After that, Michael and I started dating for real. Surprisingly enough, it turned out that Michael could be sweeter than he already was. We were always together, and when we couldn't be, Michael always called me, telling me how much he missed me. Although, to be honest, we continued to fight quite a bit. The good thing was that things never escalated to something serious, and we were also both quick to say sorry. He made me very happy. The end. Have you ever been attracted to someone you also hated? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.